Oh wait, now it's working. Do it again.
Lights, camera, fractions.
Okay, cool. All right. So, the last bit that we actually learned, last week was kind of weird because of Friday, but we were talking about adding and subtracting positive and negative numbers. And fist to 5. I just want to know, how well do you guys feel you understand those? That's awesome. Okay, that's really awesome. Don't forget what you already understand, because as soon as I start talking about this, you're going to have two separate sets of rules that are very different, okay? And you will hear people say things that are just plain not correct. And I'm going to talk about those in a few minutes. But okay, first of all, multiplying positive and negative numbers. If you have a positive number and you multiply it times a positive number, what would you get?
A positive.
A positive number? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
So let's prove it. So 2 times 4 is 8.
Yes.
If that's positive, that's positive, that's positive, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty straightforward. Okay. Now what if you have a negative number times a negative number? What would that equal?
Positive.
A positive.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah, because it's turn around and it turns.
So you're saying that negative 2 times negative 8, right? Maybe I'll do it this way. Times negative 8 is positive 16?
Yep.
Yeah.
You're right. So wait, you're saying a negative times a negative is a positive?
Yeah.
All right. So is it true? This is what you usually hear. Usually, a negative and a negative is a positive. That's what you usually hear. Is that true? A negative and a negative is a positive.
Yes.
Yes.
A negative and a negative is a positive.
No. It's not.
A negative and a negative is a positive.
It's, only times.
No.
Oh.
And is adding.
And means add. A negative and a negative is not a positive, it's a negative, because and means add. You're adding, right? A negative add plus another negative is still a negative, right? But you will hear tons of kids will say, oh yeah, a negative and a negative is a positive. That's totally wrong. A negative and a negative is a negative. A negative times a negative is a positive. Okay, so say it. Negative times negative equals a positive.
Negative times negative is a positive.
Negative times negative equals a positive.
Negative times negative is a positive.
Okay, why?
Because that's the way it is. Because it's blank.
Sachi.
This is just like a question, is it because it's pretty much the same thing as adding together twice, but is it because it's a double negative kind of thing?
Kind of. Like in English, yeah, that's a great way to think about it. In English, like if you said, I did not wash the dishes. That means you did wash the dishes, right? I did not wash the dishes. And you will get questions like this on SAT problems. They will actually give you double negatives in English. And your brain is swimming trying to figure out what they're saying. But yeah, so the double negatives makes it a positive, that's for sure. Any other ideas? Any other suggestions or ways to think about it with numbers? Caleb.
So, a negative times negative is positive. What if there's a negative times a negative times a negative?
That would be
A positive.
Well, we'll get there because I have to write the next one to answer that question. But it's a good question.
Because in English, 3 negatives equals a negative.
Then that's correct. 3 negatives would be a negative. Yeah, and you'll see that in a second. But Zubin had that interesting analogy last week. Remember, he said a negative. So if you're going this way, right? Negative means I have to turn around this way, times another negative means I have to turn this way, so I'm going back positive. Does that make sense?
Wait, but that's. I like the.
Oh, sorry. So I should go this way.
I know.
So I'm going positive, right? I'm going positive, and all of a sudden I've got a negative,
Turn that way.
and then I multiply it times another negative, and I'm now going positive again. But another way that I usually write it is, what is the definition of negative?
Less.
negative, the actual definition of a negative sign is this. The opposite of. Are there two P's in opposite? I think so. I can't tell. But anyways, the opposite of. So think about it. What's the negative 2? What's the opposite? The opposite of 2?
2. Negative 2.
Well, the opposite of 2 is negative 2. Right? Right? So if this is 0, this is 2, this is negative 2, right? So the opposite of positive 2 is negative 2. You with me?
Yeah.
Or the opposite of negative 2, negative, that means negative times negative. The opposite of a negative 2 is positive 2. You follow me?
Wait, but isn't double negative positive?
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Oh.
The opposite of a negative 2 is a positive 2. Positive 2. So in other words, negative times negative is equal to a positive. Right? Anyways, negative times negative is a positive. What if I gave you negative times a positive?
Negative?
Negative? You're right. Negative wins. But what if I gave you a positive times a negative? No, negative always wins. Come on, guys. No, negative wins. Doesn't matter which one is first and second. You're still multiplying a negative times a positive. Positive times negative, negative times positive. The answer is always negative. As long as we're talking about two numbers.
That's
Right?
So if they're different, then it's also going to be negative.
So think about it. The opposite of a positive is a negative.
So if there's if the operations are different, then
If
it's
the
negative. But if the
So,
operations
yes.
are
Yes,
the
so let's
same,
write down those rules. Those are great rules. So here's our rules. 1, if, and we're talking about in any groups of 2, right? We're talking about groups of 2, pairs, right? Like if the signs, okay, this is, I'll just put for pairs here, for groups of 2. For pairs, can I just say pairs? Right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I'm talking about 2 numbers multiplied times each other. We're not talking about 10 numbers multiplied, or 3 numbers. I'm talking about 2 numbers. If the signs are the same, if the signs are the same, comma, what happens? Positive
then it
times
ends up
positive is positive. Negative times negative is positive. Then answer is positive, right? Okay? Okay, 2. If signs are different, meaning there's a positive and a negative, right? Different, then answer is negative, right? Because you've got a negative times a positive. Right? So that's great. That's a great little rule. But that only works in pairs, because Tom asked that question. What if you had -1 times negative 1 times -1?
Oh, yeah, it'd be negative because there's 3 ones.
So you do it in groups of 2 first, right? A negative times a negative is a, now positive times a negative is a negative. So it would be negative, right? Now are you seeing a pattern?
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, Rowan's seeing a
I
pattern.
remember math class last year,
Yeah.
and I'm remembering this. But if there's like you can count the numbers, and if there's an odd amount of numbers, then it's negative, and if there's positive or an even amount of numbers, it's positive.
Or even number
No,
of
no,
negatives, right?
Even number of negatives.
Right? So that's great. That's true. So if this is our third rule.
Yeah, if there's an odd amount of negatives.
Obviously, if they're all positive, right? It doesn't matter whether it's even or
You can't-
odd. They're all going to be positive.
Yeah, you can't
But
count
right.
as negatives.
But if number of negatives is even, then it's going to be positive. then it's positive. Then it is positive. Okay, and then
vice
if,
versa.
and then 4, if number of negatives is odd, God, I can't write, is odd, then it is negative. Right? So that's really helpful to know. So if I gave you this like horrible problem, and I said, you know, -2 times 4 times 1 times -2 times -5, right?
It's negative.
I would
negative.
first, if for me, I would first just figure out this the negative. Is it positive or negative? Well, I just see, oh, there's 1, 2, 3 negatives. If it's odd number of negatives, the answer is going to be negative. So I'm going to immediately say the answer is negative. And now I don't have to worry about my signs anymore. All I have to do is go 2 times 4 is 8. 8 times 1 is 8. 8 times -2 is, well, no, 8 times 2 is 16. 16 times 5 is whatever, right? Like 80 or
I'm
something,
gonna take my notebook home.
right? 80, -80, I think that's right. Yeah. So to practice, let's just practice a few. Just see, make sure we have these down. All right, here we go. How about, here's our number 1 problem. We got -4 times 7. What's that going to be? No, help me. -4 times 7.
That's fine.
It's a negative times a
I'm
positive.
sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Well, then it'll be negative.
Say what?
It'll be negative.
It's going to be negative what?
28.
28, right? Okay. 2. What is -7 times -7?
Oh, it'd be positive 49.
Positive 49, right? Because negative times negative is positive, and then 7 times 7 is 49. 3. What it would be 6 times -2.
Negative 12.
-12, right? Because there's only one negative. It's an odd number of negatives, right? So we know it's going to be negative. All right, 3, 4. How about this? -2 times 5 times -2.
It's positive something.
So it's 20. 20.
Positive 20?
Yes.
Ne-
Are you
Positive.
positive?
Yeah.
Positive
Wow.
20. All right. So what if I gave you this? 2 times -1 times -2 times -4.
Wow. That's positive.
That's a high price.
Negative.
What's the sign?
Positive 16. Positive. Negative 16.
So how many negative signs are there?
3.
Is that an odd number?
Yeah.
So it's got to be negative, right? So we know it's going to be negative, and then 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 4 is 16, -16, right? See what I mean? It's pretty easy, right? But the problem is both of them, like this stuff is really easy, and so is adding and subtracting positive and negatives, but they're different rules. So it gets confusing when you have a problem that has both of them in it. Do you follow me?
Yeah.
And so you gotta remember PEMDAS says you multiply first, and then you do your adding and division and adding and subtracting, all that stuff. So tonight's homework will not be combining them. Tonight's on one sheet of the page, it's going to be multiplying just like this. On the other sheet, there it's going to be on the other side of the sheet. It's going to be just adding and subtracting. I just want you to keep those clear rules in your head. So, anyways, that's it. It's not a very hard lecture.
No.